1939, my dad had gone to Marquette, and he came out of the Army Airborne. The opportunity came to buy this grocery store and turn it into a restaurant, and it worked out. He decided, I'm going to stick this out for a couple more years, and then a couple more, turned into a couple more, and then you got what you got today. Long before the log building was built here, it was the original restaurant, looked more like an A-frame. I remember the plaques being out front of the provinces in Sweden. I remember my grandfather being here, my grandmother being in the kitchen all the time. Meatballs being rolled by hand before the machine came along.
We used to have white tabletops. They used to have big metal pedestals under the tables, and as little kids we used to climb around and bang them with forks and knives, or we'd grab straws and we'd shoot. We thought that the restaurant was like a playground for us.
The counter was still as it is. Even the old wood paneling underneath the counter is the same.
The reason why we have the restaurant today the way it is because of Dean Madden. And Dean would walk by and he'd say, "You ought to build a log restaurant with a sod roof."
They went to Norway and they were introduced to a fellow by the name of Knut Larson. As my dad used to tell it, on a napkin they sketched out some drawings and a handshake, and away they went.
And they built the entire building in Norway first, and everything was delivered here on the date that they needed the logs, and everything was built completely around the old restaurant. We never closed.
We watched the Norwegian carpenters hand carve some of the posts out here with their homemade Norwegian knives that they're very proud of.
I remember the greatest picture ever that I saw was my dad sitting at the very tippy top of the gift shop when the logs were crisscrossed like this, and he's sitting there on top with a little Swedish flag. He had a really good friend, Harold Larson, who everybody called Wink Larson, and he and Al were very good friends. And as a joke, every December 9th, he would always get my dad a pet. "You ought to put a goat up there." Every day he'd come and bother Al and tell him, "Well, you ought to put a goat up there."
And that's how the whole thing really started.
So it wasn't for his best friend, Wink Larson, I don't believe that we would have even thought about putting a goat on the roof.
We brought over Swedish girls, and they were mostly friends and relatives of my family. And they all wore clogs when they came over, and they asked me if they could wear clogs in the dining room, and I said sure. And that's how come we started to sell clogs.
My mom's vision was to have Scandinavian giftware, clothing, really authentic things from Scandinavia. And many times my parents would travel back and forth to Sweden and bring things back themselves, fill their suitcases, and many suitcases obviously, and just to get through a busy tourist season.
And that's how it started with the Butik. Small shop in Swedish, and then we got the big shop. I went to Sweden to gift shows and to Norway and Denmark. We tried not to have modern things.
And then 74, the gift shop was added.
When the Scandinavian logs came from Norway, my parents decided that it was important for the boutique to be connected to the restaurant. That way people could flow rather than having to walk outdoors and walk into another building. This way it would be all under one roof. I think that really the whole concept of Goat Parade is something that has really taken off, and it's turned into a big event in early June. It really has turned into something bigger than I would have ever imagined. The Boer is really an agricultural building that was used on family farms back in Norway.
The building was built around the same time the restaurant was built, and it had the same detailing the restaurant has, same kind of hand carvings that the restaurant has, and it was almost an afterthought, and it made the pond setting back there on the north side of the restaurant a kind of a Scandinavian village theme.
The idea popped up like, I wonder if we could actually move one of these buildings and use it even for a backdrop or something for a coffee shop or something next door.
Gunilla told me, have you noticed what they're doing down to the Stabbo down there? It's beautiful.
We decided to move that building up front and create a pub-like atmosphere.
They picked up the building from its old foundation in the back corner of our property.
One night they moved it next door and they made a bar out of it.
Our vision of the whole Stabor area, the whole green space and the bar, is that as a family you can actually go there, you can have your kids play the backyard games that we have out there. and meanwhile you can still have a beer or a glass of wine or a cocktail. But we want to have a nice, relaxing atmosphere that you can sit out in the sun and enjoy it as a family.
I'm just thrilled that we can offer that environment here in downtown Sister Bay. And on a sunny summer fall day, it is just an ideal spot to spend an afternoon or early evening in Door County. You know, that's one of the advantages of sometimes making smart real estate moves. If you can acquire property, you have the ability to take your time and make decisions that are hopefully in your long-term best interest.
This is our new building, and we finally have a name for it. It's called Skål, and very appropriate because it's right next to a bar and everybody can skål and go do a little shopping in there.
You know, my dad, he had that personality that when he walked in a room, everybody paid attention. He was that type of a person. I often say today, you know, when people say that they're impressed with how well the restaurant is run and my dad would be proud, I take that as a compliment.
He used to always say, I want to put Door County on the map or Sister Bay on the map. I think he did. They might not know the name of the restaurant, they might not know, you know, but they do know the place with the goats on the roof no matter where you go. Part of Door County forever, you know.